All right, another crazy ending to Sunday Night Football. And look, I had the Vikings, so I guess I lost some money. Welcome to the opening line report. I am Tommy FreezePops. We're going to look ahead to week 12 of the NFL season. Big Thanksgiving slate, as always. Got three interesting games to talk about. And of course, we have the first ever Black Friday game to talk about as well. A couple other good ones. I'm going to bring in my guy, Stu. I'm going to bring in my guy, Albert, Monotone Football, Analytics Capper. What is going on, fellas? How did you do on this Sunday of football betting? Stu, why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, I had a good week. I mean, it's always nice when you know you have a winning week kind of locked up around, 240 during the day. So that way I did not have to bet on the Sunday night football game. I could just sit back and enjoy it. I had a couple leans, but it's always good when you can just sit back and watch. And like you mentioned, we got another good ending right there. We're finally getting our money's worth for some of these primetime games. So good week right here. Like you said, a lot of action this week. Not only do we have Thursday night football with that nice Thanksgiving slate, we got Friday as well. Great sports week, a great time to be a sports bettor. Hopefully, we help you guys make some money today.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's AC. As far as the day goes, it's actually down. I had some really bad beats. Denver -1.5, they won by one. Rams -1.5, they won by one. Those two swung the day for me. I like both of them. Next time, maybe I'll buy the point, or maybe I'll do the money line. But it was a down day. Hopefully, it's gonna be a bounce back next week. You can't win them all.
There you go. And there's plenty of sports this upcoming week to bounce back here. Really good college football slate as well coming up this weekend. But let's dig right into the turkey here. Thanksgiving, Green Bay, 3.5-point dogs heading to Detroit. You can get the Lions on the money line at -375. Green Bay at +295 in the total of 44.5. The Lions were a team that I swore I would never bet on again. And then this Bears line popped up and I said, I got to do it. And then, of course, the Lions looked like the unpredictable Lions that they've looked like during the middle part of this season again today. And I lost my bet. So congratulations to me for not listening to me from a few weeks ago. But here we are, the Lions, 3.5-point favorites with a Green Bay team that has a good defense. Clearly, they did what they did with the Chargers today. I don't know what to do here. I am not going to bet the Lions the rest of the season. I'm just going to put that out there. I might be wearing a lion on my sweatshirt here, but that does not mean I'm going to bet on the Lions ever again, maybe. So, AC, why don't you kick us off here? What do we do with the Lions here on their traditional Thanksgiving game?
Yeah, so this is an inter-division rival. The Lions are getting, short rest advantage. Usually goes to the home team on Thanksgiving week just because they don't have to travel. But this is a very interesting line. I'm interested to hear what Stu says. But they played, back in September, and Detroit just dominated. Detroit won 34-20. The line there was only -2.5, and it covered easily by 2 touchdowns. Now you fast forward to today, and the Lions are, not only first place in the NFC North, but they're one of the best teams in the entire NFL, sitting at 8-2. Green Bay struggled again today, 4-6 overall, and the line has only moved 1 point. So the Lions are -3.5. It's a little interesting to me. If a gun to my head, I would probably do Green Bay there. I think there's a little bit of value there with them, but it's hard to say. I'm gonna defer right now to Stu because I had a losing day. I can't say much.
Sorry about that. I think I just pulled up one of my apps right here, and I'm seeing a 7.5 in the market right now. So either there's been a lot of early line movement, or I don't know what's going on right there. But I think that might be where your confusion is coming from a little bit in that game. Because for me, I agree. I mean, I think the Lions have been, they've shown their regular season ability so far. Obviously, we know what kind of offense they are, but then a divisional game, right? Like it's hard to pick the Lions right when they just disappointed in a very similar spot, right? Against another divisional team that's arguably a worse team with Justin Fields coming back with his first game off of injury right there. But that being said, I still do think there's a tier gap right here. I mean, the Packers have been playing better football of recent, but my overall opinion on them is still pretty low. I think a 7.5 line is a fair line. I think anything kind of north of 7 is fair, but if you can get the Lions under a touchdown, that's where I see a little bit more value. And to be honest, after the Lions did just kind of disappoint, I'm not sure people are going to be running to bet them on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I want to push back on all of this. We're calling them one of the best teams in the NFL. They almost lost to the Bears today. They had to come back from 12 points down with like 4 minutes left. I'm out on this team. No, screw you guys. I'm getting out in front of this. Nobody bet the Lions as a 7.5 point favorite against the Packers. No way. Now, I don't even
Tommy,
care what our app says.
I would say a lesser team would have lost today. I think the fact that they did come back, down multiple possessions there in the last final minutes, it's really impressive. But if you look at just this series head to head, the Lions have dominated the last 4 matchups. They've won 4 of them. They covered all 4 of them, and it's a team that got dominated by Green Bay for all those years, and now they're making up for it. So this is one of those years where Green Bay is bad, and all of their rivals are going to beat up on them.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lesser team does lose that game, but God, Jared Goff just looked like he didn't know how to play quarterback for most of that game. I mean, I was screaming at my TV. He's also my fantasy quarterback too, so I have a lot of Lions angst here. Okay, we're moving on to the next game here. We're going to talk about Stu's boys, the Commanders, 9.5 point dogs at Dallas. You can get the Cowboys on the money line at -440 and the Commanders at +340 and the total at 45.5. Obviously, AC, a Cowboys fan, so we got a head-to-head here. And I think I've seen this up to 11 in some places already. So I see that continuing throughout the week. I mean, Commanders lost to the Giants today. Tommy DeVito, looking like a serviceable quarterback at times in that game. So, I mean, look, I know this is a rivalry game, but Cowboys have been rolling, man. So, AC, why don't you lead us off here and give Stu some time to think about how he can defend his boys if he's going to at all?
I'm actually going to defend the boys for them, the Washington Commanders. I like them in this game up to +10.5. I think it's a great spot, especially if you could get that hook there. The Cowboys have been rolling, but this is a good opportunity for the Cowboys to let you down. This is what happens every single season, right? Like the Cowboys get on a run, they win 3 or 4 against really bad competition, to be honest. So they've taken advantage of the scheduling. Dak Prescott against bad teams is elite. Dak Prescott off a bye is elite. So this is a short week. This is an inter-division rivalry. And Washington just is coming off one of the most embarrassing performances by any team across the league, right? They were double-digit favorites and lost outright to Tommy DeVito, who threw 3 touchdowns. That is just downright terrible. I think Washington is going to be able to bark a little bit in this game. I actually think Washington's going to cover and win the first half outright. And Cowboys are going to get a late touchdown or a late field goal to win it. That's how I see the game going.
Yeah, well, I mean, after watching that game, it is so hard to come on here and, say any possible reason why you should bet on the Commanders in this game. I think it's funny. That's kind of a classic gambling Twitter argument, right? A lot of the model people will tell you that you can't watch the games, right? And vice versa. And for me, I almost feel like after watching today's game, like I could never come on here and tell you to bet the Commanders because that was pathetic. What I will say, though, is Washington, one, has been pretty good ATS against Dallas, even when they have thrown out some of their shittier teams. Obviously, they've taken them down on Thanksgiving a couple times in recent memory. They actually, Sam Howell won his first ever game where Dallas was playing for playoff seeding last year as well. So there are a couple factors. Like if you look at it, Washington has disappointed as a favorite in every spot this year. Start out the year against the Cardinals, right? They haven't covered a single huge spread, but you notice they always tend to bounce back that next week, right? The Eagles game was the most notorious one earlier in the year where they almost won outright. So they do this thing where they disappoint as a favorite and then come back as an underdog. So there's your argument if you want it. There's 0% chance I'll be putting any money on the Commanders. all of the money will go to Dak Prescott passing over, CeeDee Lamb receiving yards overs, because, man, the secondary, I mean, like, for Danny DeVito to do that it's pathetic. It is truly pathetic. And then to look at the reports after the game of these subpar wide receivers on the other team just being like, they just played man coverage all game. They didn't change up their plan once. Like, this is not a talent. You got beat by the least talented skill group in the country, right? This is like a Division II college football team that just demolished you and made you look bad while you sacked them 9 times, right? The defensive line sacked him 9 times, and the secondary was still able to give up what they gave up to a guy that we have barely seen complete a forward pass so far this season. So if you're telling me that Dak, who's coming in rolling, isn't going to destroy this team, then I don't know what you're watching right now. So for me, that's where all the money's going. I'm spoiling the prop section a little bit for later, but it's got to be passing overs for the Cowboys.
It sounds like you want to bet the Cowboys to cover here, and you're just afraid to touch anything related to this game. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, there's been a lot of pain this year, if you can't tell. That poster's been up and down a couple times behind me so far. It's not a fun roller coaster to be on when this as a Patriots guy. But
I'm dealing with it right now.
I'm definitely on the Cowboys side of this 100%. It's just Washington actually has been really pesky, annoying about covering in these ugly spots when nobody wants them whatsoever. So I don't want to lose both sides. My money will just solely go to the props, and I'll let guys like AC deal with the spreads.
Yeah, especially on a holiday, you don't want to be losing too much money. All right, let's go to probably the best matchup of the day here. Although we don't know what's going on with Geno Smith yet. We have the Niners 4.5-point favorites on the road in Seattle. The Niners on the money line at -205. Seattle at +170, and the total at 44. So, like I mentioned, I'm sure this number will move if we find out that Drew Lock is 100% going to be the starter here, because he stinks. But we'll see what happens. And look, Geno Smith's no world beater this year, but Drew Lock is just like an infinitely horrible quarterback. So very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this one. Should we be getting on the Niners now, or do you feel like waiting for that number to grow? I feel like get it 4.5 while you can, because it's going to probably explode here in the next coming days when we find out that Geno Smith can't play. AC, why don't you kick us off here?
I think you masterly put it perfectly there. I would do the Niners right now, early, often, all week long. Even if Geno goes, I think 80% Geno is not going to be very effective against one of the best defenses in the NFL, and a defensive line that is eating right now. They are eating everybody's offensive line's lunch, and it's not a fair fight. And let's say Geno decides not to go. You're going to get a backup quarterback, Drew Lock, on a short week against, like I said, against one of the best defenses in the NFL. And now with their offensive weapons healthy, right? They have Ayuk, who's been balling out of control. Christian McCaffrey got another touchdown today. And Debo has really put this team into a different, stratosphere, if you will. I think the Niners are going to come out and crush this team. I would, in the NBA, I like this thing called the trifecta, where you do first quarter, first half, and full game. I kind of see the same type of dominance here for the Niners, who are coming off a game where they did beat the Bucks but didn't cover, and the Seahawks are coming off a game where they lost but did cover. With that being said, just give me the Niners all day, every day right now.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I've made a lot of money betting the Niners against the Seahawks in this exact matchup over the last couple of years. Shanahan specifically has had a lot of success against this very unique Pete Carroll defensive scheme that this team has been playing, and especially this year, it's a very zone-heavy team. We know how good these weapons are, just finding those holes in the zone and punishing you for it with all that yak. So I agree. I think they're going to be able to get done on the offensive side of the ball. I do have one weird theory for this game, and it's about Kenneth Walker. And I think, honestly, I know this is a bit out there. I think Kenneth Walker getting hurt and possibly not playing could actually be a pretty good thing for Seattle. I think it maybe opens up their offensive play calling and it forces them to get a little bit uncomfortable here, which in my opinion is the only way they beat San Francisco. Because the reason I like to bet San Francisco against them every year is because they never get uncomfortable. They play the same style of football they always do. They try to aggressively run the ball early. And guess what? There's like one team you can't do that against in football, and it's the Niners, right? That they sell out to stop the run. Phenomenal defensive line, like AC said, spectacular linebackers right behind them. This just isn't a team you can establish the run on consistently. And that's all Seattle wants to do. They like to set up the run to establish the pass beyond that. I'm not sure if that's going to work here, no matter who's the quarterback, right? Whether it's a Geno Smith, whether it's a Drew Lock. I am curious, though, if Kenneth Walker is out, if this team actually comes out and throws the ball a little bit more, lets DK Metcalf go to work. That's where I actually think they have the advantage in this game, that secondary in particular, especially Hufanga, who's I know a young guy, but has quickly established himself, looking like he might be out for the season in that safety core. Gibson, another dependable veteran, but not quite that, safety you want to depend on out there. So that's where you beat him, is the secondary. I'm not sure if they're going to be confident enough to do that. I still like the Niners, but I do think that will be something to look for a live betting perspective and a prop betting perspective.
Yeah, I've already actually thrown some money on the Niners here. And I actually created a little parlay for myself. Took them ATS as well as the Miami Dolphins ATS. I got them at 6.5 at my local sportsbook here. And I might bet them up to 12, knowing that it's going to be either Zach Wilson, who just got benched, or Tim Boyle, who looked like an actual Boyle out there on the field today. I mean, the Jets are an absolute mess on offense. The Dolphins are clicking on all cylinders. Tyreek left the game, I know, with a hand thing. He came right back and was awesome. I just think the Dolphins are going to play really well on Friday. For Friday game here, I think the Dolphins roll. I think the Niners are going to roll. So I really like that parlay. I got it. I think I forgot if I just mentioned this, but I got it at plus 247, parlaying those two together. So there's a little tasty morsel for you if you're into that. So AC, what do you think here about the Dolphins as about a touchdown favorite here over the Jets at the moment? But that's got to be moving, right?
Yeah, that line's probably going to move. I mean, it's a weird number, 6, to be honest. We're not even touching the 6.5 yet, or even 7. The line, honestly, if it's still 6, I haven't checked it in the last couple minutes, but if it's still 6, to me, it's a Jets play. Jets just got dominated by the Buffalo Bills up and down the field all day long, 1 through 4 quarters. Usually the team that's up by 20, 25, lets off the gas in the fourth quarter. But I think the Bills wanted to make a statement after they fired Ken Dorsey there. The Jets just let them, right? But this line, to me, if it's at 6 against a historic offense in Miami who continues to roll offensively, it's a Jets play. If I look at the head-to-head matchup here, their history shows that it's a very, very close series, right? The Jets did beat them 40-17, last October, but every other game prior to that was within a score. So another inter-division rivalry game that both teams kind of know each other. They haven't played yet this season, so I think that's advantage Jets, to be honest, because Jets, at the end of the day, there is one thing they have, and they have a decent to above average defense. And a lot of times their defense is put in a bad position because their offense is just so inept, and they turn the ball over a ton. If they turn the ball over against Miami and allow the Dolphins to have a short field, then yes, this is going to be most likely a blowout. But if the turnovers are even or advantage Jets, look for them to be a live dog, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary to me. But I mean, AC is really good at kind of the number analysis, and I think he killed it right there. When you look at this, you're like, 6? Like, really 6? We're not even crossing 7 yet. And I think by the end of the week, this will creep up not only past 7, probably 7.5 or 8, just based on how ugly that Jets team is and based on how the recent performance of that squad is something that the public is negatively going to react to, right? They are never going to be one of those teams that people are like, oh yes, I want to run to the sports book to bet the Jets this week, except when Aaron Rodgers comes back, which I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get there. But until then, when we have the Tim Boyle experience, we have the Zach Wilson experience, or Trevor Siemian, or whatever, guy they plug into this role, it's not going to be something I want to bet on right now. The biggest factor for me comes down to when you look at what this Jets defense does really strong, their boundary corners, their outside corners are spectacular. The reason Sauce Gardner doesn't need to shadow anyone is because the guy right across from him, DJ Reed, is also one of the best corners in the league. He's just not talked about quite as much, but he's right up there, 2 top 5 PFF grades right across from each other. What that means, though, is they funnel a lot of targets over the middle and they funnel a lot of targets to the slot wide receivers. That's perfect for Miami. Miami wants to do all of their work over the middle. They don't want to challenge you in the traditional way that a lot of teams do vertically. They like to challenge you vertically and horizontally. It's a very creative offense. I think they can take advantage of the Jets defense better than most teams, right? Where you're relegated to the outside being the strength of your team. For this Miami team, it's over the middle. They want to avoid those outside corners no matter what the team is. So I have this one problem. I kind of banned myself from betting the Dolphins against non-finesse teams. We talked about it a couple times this year. I don't want the Dolphins against a gritty team. Even your Patriots, who have almost lost the gritty reputation at this point. Earlier in the year, we're still able to grind that game out with their defense and make it a slow, ugly game. That's the biggest risk to the Dolphins at all times, and we do know the Jets can do that. So it's a little bit scary to me, but I lean the Dolphins right now.
And this actually has already moved to 7 here on DraftKings. So let's see how that continues to move throughout the week. And look, I understand the gritty thing you're talking about here, Stu, but I think that we're not remembering that the Dolphins defense is pretty damn good too. Like, they've been improving week over week. They looked good today. I see this one getting out of hand personally. I think the Jets are trending in the wrong direction. I know that defense is talented, but that offense has looked absolutely inept. And we talk about the turnover thing. The Dolphins are an opportunistic defense that has talent. They're going to create turnovers against this Jets offense. That's going to happen. So, I mean, Tyreek anytime touchdown, like, bet your kid's college fund on it at this point, right? I mean, it's been an absolute moneymaker for people this season. I'm going to have fun watching this one because I really like watching the Jets lose, even if it's the Dolphins succeeding. All right, let's go to what I think is going to be my favorite game of the weekend. The Jaguars in Houston as a 1-point favorite. You can get the Jags on the money line at -120. Houston, even odds at the moment. The total is 45. I haven't checked this line in the last few minutes, but I feel like this is going to stay right in this range all week. Lots of people high on both of these teams. I think CJ Stroud is legitimately the MVP of the NFL. I don't care that he's a rookie. That's something that people need to not think about. He is the best player on the team that is having the most surprising season out of anyone in the league right now. And I know he threw a bunch of picks today, but if you watch that game, he was making some incredible throws. The dude looks so poised back there. I love watching this guy play football. It is clear that he is elevating the guys around him. He's my MVP. Age is just a number, people. But what do we think about this game here? The Jags bouncing back, having a dominant win against the Titans today. Stu, why don't you kick us off here on what I think is going to be one of the best games of the weekend?
Yeah, and a lot of times we talk about buy spots. For me, this is tough because this is two teams that are traditional sell spots for me. I'm not very interested in Jacksonville. I've been very anti-Jacksonville for a good majority of the season, and it's worked out pretty well in at least the big games that matter, right? And when you look at Houston on the other side of this, Nothing against him. I agree with everything you just said right there. But the problem is the whole world is seeing what you're seeing as well. And the whole world is falling in love as well. And that's going to artificially inflate that number to a point where I don't want to be on this public Houston side, no matter how impressed I am with their action. The problem is, like I said a second ago, I'm running into a situation where I don't really want either of these two teams with the narrative we have coming in here. So when I look at the end of the day on what team is just performing better at the moment, which team I trust more, it's going to be the freaking Houston Texans. Who knew I would be saying that at this point in the season? I'm not sure if this is going to be a real money bet. If anything, this profiles as a very easy over. I think 45 right here seems like a good number. I bet it's 46 by sunrise tomorrow. And then we're talking about 47.5 on all the major sport shows later this week. Because as we've seen, the Texans are going to keep scoring points, baby. And hey, you mentioned it a minute ago. Touchdown, interception, it doesn't matter if you have the over. It's the Jameis Winston effect, baby. Keep throwing the ball. That's all we care about. Two good offenses right here. I'm excited for this one. I think the Texans narrowly scrape out a win, but I'm taking the over in this one.
And it looks like it's already up to 47 here at DraftKings. So the lines have been moving quite a bit over the last couple hours here. So look at that. The bettors are getting in early and often here. AC, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean that's a big number. I'm not on the total itself, but 47 is a key number. Everybody knows that. 27-20 is one of the most popular scores in NFL history if you look at the historical data. But to me, out of these two teams, Jacksonville -1 against Houston in Houston, there's only one team that covered this week, and it was actually Jacksonville. I know Houston dominated that matchup, against the Arizona Cardinals all game long, but CJ Stroud had 3 interceptions. I had one in the goal line that would have been an easy cover. They won by 5. The line was 5.5. I was on the Texans. I took every bad beat today, basically. But again, this is from an ATS spot. It's a Houston spot. They are the ones that are coming off a game where they did not cover. And for those who forget, back in, September 24th, this was the coming out party for CJ Stroud. Everybody thought CJ Stroud was this game manager rookie, and he went into Jacksonville and beat them 37-17. That's not like a normal win. That is a interdivision. Jacksonville's supposed to be the best team. They're supposed to win the AFC South. Everybody was on them heading into the year. That's a beatdown on the road against Jacksonville. Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think Houston's gonna. I don't know if Houston has their number per se, but if you look at just that matchup and then heading into how much Houston has improved since September 24th, I like Houston here. And you guys know one of my biggest principles when it comes to betting. And I didn't follow it today, which is why I got killed on the short favorites, the -1.5s, the -1s. Sometimes they win, but don't cover. So I'm not going to touch Jacksonville here. I think it's Houston or nothing for me.
I think it's going to be a really fun game. I almost might not want to bet it because it's going to be so fun. I like the over side of things just because it feels like both these teams kind of forget how to play defense at times and just things go crazy for a second there. So I'm just going to really enjoy watching this one. Another really, really interesting game. We got a team that's playing tomorrow night on Monday Night Football, and they got the Bills at home. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. 3.5-point dogs. The Bills are heading down to Philly. You can get the Eagles at -192 on the money line and Buffalo at +160 with a total of 47. So Buffalo is a team that I feel like this show has had so many different varying opinions on, whether it's we really like them, we're going to take them up to being a 12-point favorite in this game, or hey, what the hell is going on with Buffalo? Then they're firing offensive coordinators, and then they're exploding this week against a really good Jets defense. So Buffalo is all over the place. I still think they're super talented. I think this could be a close game. I'm not going to pick against the Eagles at home. I just think that they kind of got the sauce right now. That doesn't mean I'm going to pick them to beat the Chiefs tomorrow. I think the Chiefs actually win that game, and we could talk about that game a little bit before we wrap here. But This is going to be really interesting. Week 2 of Josh Allen free of Ken Dorsey. What is it going to look like? So, AC, why don't you kick us off here? What do we do with the Bills as a 3.5-point dog?
Yeah, the first reaction I have here is the spread and the money line don't really add up. Stu, you can vouch for me or you can disagree with me, but Philadelphia minus 190 on a 3.5-point spread. That to me screams that they're going to win the game but not cover. I don't know if that money line is still actionable right now, right? Tommy mentioned the lines have been moving a
We're
ton
looking
in the
at
last
170 at the moment, so it's
Okay,
still
that
kind
makes
of
a
in
lot.
that
Yeah, that
range.
makes a lot more sense. But even within it, I think it's a little high. So to me, I read it as Philly wins, Buffalo covers. Again, I would never bet the spread. Here's another principle I have when it comes to betting. I never bet the spread, especially on a dog, unless I think they can win. Even those, plus 13-point spreads. Like if I see a way that team can win, whether it's game scripts, whether it's turnovers, whether it's weather, whatever the case may be, like those are. I'm not going to be on the underdog spread unless I also think they can win. In this case, do I think Buffalo can win? Buffalo is one of those teams where you always expect them to play up to their competition because they do have an elite quarterback. But the quarterback now has led the league in turnover, I think 4 or 5 straight seasons. And if you're going to turn the ball over against Philly, who is going to dominate both the offensive and defensive line, I think it's an impossible task to win. So unless Josh Allen becomes an amazing, caregiver of the football, I can't bet Buffalo in this game. So I'm going to lay off. I think we're going to see an under, to be honest, because I think Philly's going to really control the clock and just hammer the ball down Buffalo's throat.
Oh, this is a tough one. I mean, you mentioned a lot of different opinions on the show. I've been very pro Buffalo a lot of this season, and I've been historically very anti Philadelphia in a playoff setting, right? Philadelphia is a team that I don't believe on to get it done when it matters the most. But it's tough because now we have back-to-back regular season matchups against these teams where I don't think that weight is going to punish Philly as much as it will in the offseason. But I do know that if Philly wins these games, they're still going to catch a lot of shit. So I'm actively rooting against Philly very hard in both of these games right here. But for betting perspective, I mean, once again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but I love the over in this. And if you've been watching the show so far this year, you know that's not normal. I'm not normally pointing out overs on totals right here, but I mean, for real, 47 is the over in this game. I mean, we've seen this Buffalo defense without Matt Milano, without Tre'Davious White. They can't cover anybody. And now, let alone a top 3 offense in football, one of the most talented teams in football. At a minimum, how is Philadelphia not scoring 28 points in this game? That's a kind of mid-tier game for Philadelphia if they only score 28. And so then you're telling me the Bills aren't going to score 20 in return? I mean, Josh Allen against, once again, another Philadelphia defense that hasn't been as good as we expected it to be, especially in the secondary this year. So it's going to be really hard to trust Buffalo here, but they are playing with their backs against the wall. This is must-win territory. They are fighting for the playoffs right now, and the hook on that spread is the really tempting part. I think AC kind of nailed it, right? Like, it's going to be a close game. I think it comes down to a field goal. So I'm gonna back the Bills on the spread right here, but it's a close one.
Yeah, I'll say this: if the Eagles get the win against the Chiefs on the road on Monday night, I think it's a Bills screamer then, to be honest, because I think that's a really, really nice buy low, sell high spot. And Buffalo usually plays up to, the elite teams. I think they beat Miami this year, right? Like 48-20. That was a blowout. It wasn't even close. They lost to the Bengals, but they had ample chances that Josh Allen just threw away, let it go through his fingers. But I think, the more I talk about this, and this is why it's such a valuable show for those who are joining on for the first time, like you're getting the initial reaction live on camera. And so in my opinion, if Philly shocks, it's not even a shock the world, but they do have a live chance against Kansas City in Kansas City tomorrow night. The line's been hovering between 2.5 and 3. And if Philly has a great game, they can definitely beat Kansas City. And then with that being said, going into the following week where the Chiefs just, the Eagles just beat the Super Bowl champions, everybody's going to be loving Philly in Philly. So I'm going to like Buffalo in that particular situation.
All right, let's talk about that game. We've crossed over into Monday here on the East Coast here. It is 12:01. So tonight's game, Monday Night Football, the Eagles plus 2.5 at Kansas City at the moment here at DraftKings, the money line, the Chiefs minus 148, the Bills at plus 124 with a total of 45.5. I know we previewed it last week, and neither one of these teams has played since we last talked about it, but have you guys changed your opinions at all? Where do you stand, 7 days after we last spoke about this game? Stu, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel the same exact way. I think it's going to be an incredibly close game. I think at the end of the day, Kansas City has the better quarterback. They have the better coach. So that's the team that I would be supporting in this game. But also, you got to realize the big bummer about betting on Kansas City in the regular season is they just don't care as much as we want them to, right? They're not pulling out the A-plus playbook. I feel like I have to mention this every week, but it continues to be true. This is a team, and this isn't a new concept with Andy Reid, by the way, that they're saving their best for last. They're saving it for playoff season. And this is not a playoff game. No matter how much the media wants to make it seem like a playoff environment, no matter how much as sports bettors, as fans, we want to make it seem that way, it's not. It's just a regular season game to these guys. It's an important one. But that being said, that would be my one concern with Kansas City, is that you're not quite getting the A-plus team that you'd expect. And at the end of the day, I think Philly keeps it very close. I don't have any interest in betting the spread in this one. I'd only be going for the money line. But I like Kansas City on the money line.
Yeah, that's a very mature analysis work by Stu there, to be honest, because he's right. Like, this is a game between two Super Bowl, participants last season, and you expect this to be the best game of the year. And we always hope for that. We always want for that. But this isn't college football. Like, one loss is not the end all be all in the NFL. If anything, losing in the regular season and then seeing them again in the playoffs has been more advantageous for NFL teams. So I agree with Stu there. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with our analysis last week. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, and he's only getting 2.5 points at home. I think the caveat to what Stu is saying is not only are they shortening the playbook and not showing everything, I say that's thrown out the window when it's a close game and Patrick Mahomes, competitive spirit takes over. And that's when you see him, do a lot of stuff. He just draws plays in the dirt, or he does street football and he gets guys open and things like that. Like, he'll never, scramble to get a first down early in the first quarter, but midway through the fourth or down a touchdown in the fourth, he's going to do those type of things just because of that's the player that he is. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say Chiefs minus 2.5. I feel the money line is a little safer there. I think we might get a pretty close game on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one, and I think you nailed it, AC. I think that the competitiveness of Mahomes and even Travis Kelce in this game is going to just kind of rear its head in a way that it wouldn't normally for a Chiefs regular season game where, like you said, Stu, they kind of like that's why they never cover these massive numbers over the last few years when the Chiefs are like 8-point favorites, 9-point favorites. And the Chiefs are always winning, but they're never covering and they're making us all angry. This is a little different, I think. I think that you're going to see Travis wants to beat his brother, right? I think his brother said this week, I mean, both of them talk all the time now. They're the two most famous dudes in America, apparently. But I heard one of the quotes the other day, Jason's never beaten Travis. So you know that he's going to come out and want to get the dub, right? And he always plays well. But I don't know. I'm excited for this one. I'm proud of us for not mentioning Taylor Swift. So thank you guys for holding up your end of the bargain there. AC, thank you as always, buddy. We will be talking next Sunday, and good luck to you throughout the week. And hopefully you have bounce back.
Thank you guys. And no, I first of all, I apologize for the darkness here. I'm actually
no, it's kind of a cool ambiance.
Yeah, I'm outside in the resort. So like I had 4 or 5 people walk by and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I mean, this is really cool, spreading OddsTrader to people all around the country. That's the
That's
goal.
right. Get them to download the app. There you go. All right, see you, AC. Let's hit your early prop leans here. You mentioned a few of them here. If you want to re-hit the Dak point that you made earlier, but what else you got for us? What should I be betting on? What should I have as a little side dish with my Thanksgiving dinner here?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, we hit a lot of the spots. Been a good show so far. So we'll go a little bit quicker here at the end. I mentioned I love Dak Prescott passing yards, and I love CeeDee Lamb, the number one wide receiver for longest reception and total receiving yards in that game. The Giants wide receivers hit on it. Washington's defense isn't adjusting. Their whole game plan is play man coverage and hope the defensive line wins. And guess what? The defensive line won 9 times last week. They sacked 9 times, and they still got demolished by a bunch of B and C level wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb is not a B or C level wide receiver. He's an absolute beast. Another one we didn't talk about, Baltimore. Great matchup in that Chargers game right there. I like Gus Edwards to get back into the end zone. This guy's been an absolute red zone monster, and you get him at like plus 140 to plus 160 every week because guess what? There's a lot of competition on Baltimore. I know. I've realized there's 40 different guys that can score a rushing touchdown. But as someone that has Gus Edwards on my fantasy team, there's a common factor every week. Gus Edwards gets in the red zone and gets in the end zone every single week, right? They don't call him Gus Bus for nothing. The guy's an absolute train, and he is a tank in the red zone. So I love him at plus money to score a touchdown. Then finally, one more. We're going to talk about Joshua Dobbs rushing yards. Just probably sold a lot of people in prime time right here. I faded that matchup. The line got way too high. We're seeing a peak at 36 before closing time. One of the easiest buy downs. Anytime, pro tip for prop betting. I know unders are not sexy. Anytime you see a line move more than 10 or 11 yards organically for something like rush yards, you can just blind bet the under, and you're going to have a lot of success at closing time because no matter how much value there was on that early line that everyone fell in love with at Joshua Dobbs 26 and a half rush yards, there's not going to be that value at 36 and a half rush yards. The good news though is when everyone loses that 36 and a half rush yards, we see it drop right back down to 26 and a half the next week. Chicago Bears have been notorious for giving up these big rushing performances to opposing quarterbacks. I think Dobbs takes advantage. So those are my 3 prop leans for next week. A lot of good action, a lot of good games. Hopefully we can cash some tickets.
Hell yeah. I like that. That's good analysis there. That's a good tip for fellow bettors. And you mentioned the Chargers-Ravens game. I thought about putting that in our list, but the Chargers have not earned our respect.
They haven't.
Like they've fallen off the marquee for me to lose the way they did today. And I know some guys balled out a little bit if you're into the fantasy numbers, but you got to start winning ball games at a certain point. And I know that Brandon Staley's getting all upset in these post-game pressers. It's like, dude, you have a generationally great quarterback.
Oof.
You should be awesome. You have good skill position guys. You have a good defense. This is not what this is supposed to look like. It's amazing that he's even still the coach. So, Chargers, I'm sorry. You're going to have to do better if you want us to talk about you. That's what it is.
That's very fair. That's very fair. As someone that's tried to defend him at times this year, I mean, before we get off, I saw one guy. He went before, and I felt very similar. Before the game when he went, if I was, 21, a new sports bettor in Las Vegas, and I had, 10 grand in my account, I would have went and I would have betted on the Chargers -3 this weekend. But after being here for 20 years and seeing what I've seen, the Packers were my favorite bet of the week. And I felt the same exact way. Sometimes you look at a line, you look at a team like the Chargers, and you're just like, no matter how good this looks, no matter how tempting this is, against the Packers, really? No, Don't do it. Don't do it. I think that's a good life lesson to end on right here. At the end of the day, just don't with the Chargers.
And that's almost the advantage of, following these old grizzled veteran bettors, the ones that are actually on Twitter. A lot of these guys aren't even on social media. They just live at books all day and they do everything by hand. I mean, if you go out to Vegas and you go to some of these, like you go to Circa or something and you just see these guys doing their thing, it's quite a sight to see. So that's good stuff there. And yeah, I mean, if you're putting the Chargers as a 3-point favorite heading into this week as a book, that you're just stealing money. Like that was a money maker, I'm sure, for Vegas this past weekend. So Stu, thank you so much as always. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving week. I hope you guys all download the OddsTrader app so you can win bets throughout Thanksgiving weekend. You can build parlays with your family. What a great way to bring the family together. Instead of talking politics or religion or the things that tear us apart here, why don't you all build a fun parlay together using the OddsTrader app, using some of the stuff that Stu just told you here for some props. Props are fun. That's something that grandma and your little cousin can both understand. Is this guy going to get in the end zone or is he not? You don't need to understand a point spread to understand, is a guy going to score a touchdown or is he not going to? So let's have some fun over the holiday season here. Download the OddsTrader app. It is the best in class predictive sports betting AI that you can use. oddstrader.com, the Google Play Store for Android, the App Store for Apple. So I am Tommy FreezePops. We will see you next Sunday. Me, Stu, AC, and we will continue to make you money here on the Opening Line Report. See you later.